I think, or have we? Yes. Yes, now we're going. Okay, so welcome again to our July Wireside chat. I'm joined by my erstwhile co-host, Melissa Hart, and by our special guest, Marisa Cleveland. And many of you probably know both Melissa and Marisa. I asked Marisa to come and talk to us today about her career, all the different incredible hats that she wears and juggles with grace, and also answer our questions that we might have about the agenting business, and not just what agents do, but in our program, we talk a lot about what careers writers might want to consider in order to give them a stable income while they're pursuing their writing. One of the jobs that we don't talk about specifically, I think, is that of a literary agent. And I know that a lot of writers pursue literary agent careers, but I also know that it's difficult to kind of be a writer and a literary agent at the same time. So those are among the many things that we will discuss today. So let me just welcome Marisa. And Marisa, tell us about yourself, those who might not know you yet.
Oh gosh, I think I would have expected that. So I'm Marisa Cleveland. I joined the Seymour Agency in 2009. And I am a firm believer in those who do should also teach. So from very early on, as soon as I got my agent, and I still believe she sold a kidney to land me this 3-book deal so that I could get PAN in what used to be the RWA's published author thing. And I just started mentoring people and doing workshops and showing up places with other writers who wanted to know like inside stuff. And because I'm very transparent, I'm just like blah 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 blah. Everyone's like, oh, tell me this, and I'm just like, okay. And so I've just always believed that you should be teaching. Unfortunately, like I can't teach all the time because of time constraints and when publishing gets busier, or I always put my clients first. So when we've got a lot of deals and everything, stuff kind of has to take a back burner for teaching. But I am a firm believer that those who do should also teach. So since I was a writer, I was teaching writing. Once I became an agent, I started mentoring along other agents. And then when Sanu's online MFA program came about, I was like, oh, this looks cool. And then you all wanted me, so here I am.
Well, you're a perfect fit, because with you, we get like 3 separate instructors rolled into one because you have such a wide-ranging experience. So let me ask you a little bit. Why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about your career as a writer?
Okay, so that was a very slow, long. I'm going to disclaimer this with everyone should do as I say, not as I do. So it's a very slow, long thing. I grew up reading like Harlequin novels, absolutely love them. Ended up getting an R&R at the same time that I ended up also getting an actual offer with an advance for a 3-book deal. So
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but some of our listeners might not know what an R&R is.
It's when an editor gives you a revise and resubmit. So they're like, hey, we love your voice. We love what you're doing here, but it's not something that we feel is commercial. Can you redo this, 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 and this? And oh, by the way, take out the dog. So sitting and I sat down with my agent, and well, even before that, I queried, I can't remember how many, I have the list somewhere, but it was like way back, when everything was still paper and stamps and you mail it out. And so I signed with Mary Sue at the Seymour Agency. She was like, I just really love your message, your voice, your philosophy. And that's when I first understood that like, it's more than just the book, because I was getting these letters back from agents saying like, oh, you have really great writing style. It's clear you know how to, tell a story, blah, blah, blah. But something wasn't connecting there. And later, when I was on the conference circuit, I got to meet one of these agents who is actually no longer an agent, and also an editor who's no longer an editor. And they both said to me that they had a concern that I might not write relatable characters because I wasn't the default stereotypical writer that they had at the time. And along those lines, something was interesting. I went to a workshop, and Nora Roberts, when she was starting out, said, yeah, I was trying to get into Harlequin, and they said they already had their one American writer. So it's back where things kind of fall into a line where we had this type of writer, this type of writer, this type of writer. And so that's where I was when I entered the publishing industry. So when I get the actual offer versus the R&R, my agent was like, well, you could have a 3-book deal now, and we can start you off and get your career out. And this is where I say, do as I say, not as I do, because I got so involved in like a bunch of other stuff that was really interesting that I missed a deadline. And then, so my books did not come out as intended, which were back-to-back releases with this whole series put together. They took like years because I just was not looking necessarily at the career writer, as you can tell, because my agent now, and I had more fun working with our current clients and doing like branding and website, and like the social media stuff was just coming out. So I read much more than I write. So I did like a lot of behind the scenes before I actually started signing clients. So that was my writing career. I still do
Right,
write.
but I mean,
I have a book coming out in the fall, but it takes like forever for me to get a book idea and then actually write a complete book.
So tell us about the book that's coming out in the fall.
That's my first nonfiction book, actually. It's not a genre one. So I stepped away from romance. I co-wrote it with my husband. It's on leadership and about being like the CEO of your own life and just basically,
very cool.
So, but I mean, again, like there was like maybe 2 years or 3 years when we're like, let's put this proposal together. And my agent was like, hey, where is it? Hey, where is it? And then, finally we're like, all right, let's just do it. We've been saying we're going to do it for a long enough time. So yeah, for career writers, you definitely want to be able to follow like, a schedule and deadlines. And when you get those contracts, you don't want to alienate your publishing team by missing deadlines, which we didn't do this time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, but it's easier said than done. My first book came out, and mine was a 2-book deal, and I mean it wasn't a the second book wasn't a sequel of the first novel, but it was still, they had the option on it, and they bought it on the basis of a pitch and an outline, and then I had to deliver by a certain date, and I could not do it. I had the second book curse. And I wound up writing an entire novel and throwing it away and starting from scratch. And it was just a nightmare. I went through like 3 different editors at that publishing house, HarperCollins, because my late book outlasted their entire editorial careers. It's hard, I mean, like, sometimes, I don't know. I mean, what do you do to inspire yourself when you feel like something is getting in the way? It's not quite writer's block, but it's more like the knowledge that you have to produce something by a certain date.
Yeah, actually, that's a really great segue into the agenting side. I just want to really quick say this. So when I get a query from somebody and they're like, oh, this is the book of my heart. It took me 11 years to write. I'm so glad you're accepting upmarket fiction right now. And, I get on a Zoom and I'm like, so it took you this long to write. You told me you wanted it to be a series. How long is it going to take you to write book 2? And they're always like, and I'm like, because you'll have about 6 months once we put it out, if we get offers and they want to see, proposals and everything. So it's really interesting when somebody's like, oh, it took me like 3 years. I'm very aware of that now, which I wasn't before, because you have all the time in the world to polish that first book.
Yes.
And then it's like, when you're asked to do that second book, you're like, oh, suddenly I'm on deadline. I actually have to meet word count. It has to be quality work. I can't take, 3 to 5 years to polish it anymore. So.
Yeah. So what's the secret? How do you reach that point?
For us now, this last book with my husband, he is a project manager. So he put me on this like project management chart, Gantt schedule, where we had like deadlines where like these 3 chapters had to be done by this time. This time was when we were revising these chapters while we were writing these ones. I mean, it was a really cool process. It was my first, it was the first time that he actually set a book schedule with a deadline that we finished early. And I was like, every writer should do this. Like,
I would like to hire your husband if he's available. I mean, I need that kind of help.
And we're putting together a thing actually for the agency to go out for project management for writers so that they can see how they can stack their series, their books, writing, because we have one author, oh my gosh, she's amazing, Julianne Walker. And I remember when her first series came out, she was like at revising book 1 from her editor while trying to finish book 2 edits from her critique group or something. And then book 3 was due. And then book 1 came out and it was like a back-to-back release. And I was just like, oh, I was like in awe of her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Melissa, you also juggle a lot of different deadlines and projects in your career. I mean, what do you do to make that happen? To keep all your deadlines?
Yeah, okay, you two. I wasn't aware I was allowed to miss a deadline ever. What are you talking about? I was such a goody two-shoes straight A student. I don't think I've ever missed a deadline in my life.
You're the dream author.
Yeah, sign her up quick.
I didn't know I could.
You're the unicorn.
Why didn't anybody tell me?
Yeah, well, they don't want to let that dirty little secret out.
I had no idea.
But I feel like it hurt me to not get my second book in on time and to miss all those deadlines. It hurt me. It hurt my career. And I think even psychologically, it hurt me a little bit. It made it harder to recover my confidence as a writer. Did you have that issue, Marisa?
No, but I think one of the reasons is because I had a really great rapport with our publisher and my agent at the time, and we were all at a dinner and we were talking, and they just both did a really great job to make me feel like welcome and like I belonged and here I am, and when I can get it. Whereas I think if I had gone with like a different type of publisher, that I would have felt a little more under the gun, a little more like it needs to get done. You didn't follow, the synopsis and the marketing team already has this out, and where is this?
Yeah.
So I think I was very fortunate, and I do have clients now that they meet deadlines. They come in early, like something's due, and like whatever, they're like, here it is, like 10 days early, and I'm like, oh, I love you.
But that
I totally understand what you're saying. I think if I was in a different environment, if it wasn't, the actual agent that I was with at the time, if it wasn't, I think a lot of things just happened that it was very, I still feel very welcome for, they're like, send us whatever, you have it. And
I feel like that leads to another question, because the agent writer relationship is so important. How do you know as a writer that you're in the right relationship with an agent? When do you know that you're not in the right relationship with an agent? When do you need an agent divorce? And when do you know that your agent is somebody you want to stick with, even through, because a lot of times, for example, a writer will go to a bad patch. They can't seem to sell anything. They'll blame the agent when it's not really the agent's fault. They'll think that a new agent will solve all their problems when that's not the case. The problem is elsewhere. So how do you figure out what to do and where the problem is? Is it with you? Is it with your agent? Is this the right agent? Is it a bad writer agent marriage?
I think that is such a hot topic right now too, specifically. I think you don't know until you hit a crossroads, like a point where the author is struggling, and I think the author just needs to know like how comfortable they are with reaching out to their agent, and then how their agent responds. So I think it's basically, how the agent's going to communicate. That's one of the first things I always ask on Zoom, is I'm always like, or a phone call or whatever, when we're first, trying to see if we're gonna like make a good partnership, is like, how do you prefer to communicate? I do have some authors who are like, I never want to use a video. I never want to see your face. I never want you to see my face, and it's like, okay, just text me, and so I think a lot of times it's like, if authors are too like their personalities will show during the roughest moments. And I think it's
Yeah.
really just the agent's attitude. Like if that agent knows and is there for a specific reason, if the ideologies match, like why that person is agenting and why that person is an author. And sometimes they clash. Like I have some authors who, you know, they wrote one book and they're totally okay with it. And if it sells in the next 10 years, they're going to be fine. And I have others that are like, you have 1 year to get this done and I'm moving on. And, but
Yeah.
if you talk about that beforehand, that, you know, like with my one client, like, oh, they have a year. I'm like, well, I'm gonna need 2 years because I'm a new agent. I'm still building up, you know, communications. I'm still doing outreach, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, like we talk about it through. And then sometimes when you talk about it and you see like what their goals are, you're like, I am not the agent for you. You are gonna be so unhappy with me. So I think it's knowing yourself as an agent. It's you, it's the author knowing themselves as the author. What do they want to get out of it? And it's being able to tell the agent so that the agent can kind of play back and forth and see if it's going to work out. And I know it's so hard as an author because I remember when I was querying the very first agent that ever showed interest, I'm like, I love you forever. And but I knew that that was not going to work out, that relationship, because she had so many huge names on her list. And I always saw her being just so super busy with those huge, and I know how time consuming even just one contract can be. So I knew I was going to be kind of not pushed to the side, but she was fitting me in, and I wasn't going to be that like her rock star right away get going. And I knew myself as an author, I wasn't that I'm going to pound out 1,000 novels so you can sell one of them, and you know. So I think you just have to know yourself as an author, and the agent should know themselves as the agent.
I almost feel like at the outset of a writer's career, I don't think most writers do know themselves yet. So in a way, when they're reaching out to an agent, it's almost like the agent has a responsibility to sort of look out for the interests of that writer, you know, because like you said, with you, when a potential client comes along, you may decide, well, you know what, I'm not the right agent for you. You're not going to be happy with me. You need somebody else. That's an understanding that the writer might not yet have because they don't have enough professional experience. And so you, in a way, have to be kind of selfless as an agent and say, like, yes, I could sell this writer's book and it might make a lot of money, but it might not be the right career move long term for this writer. I mean, is that how you try to think, speaking in terms of like what your ideology as an agent is?
For me personally, yes. And in fact, I have this great example where this story came across my desk for this author. It was an awesome story. I was so super excited about it. But I also knew that this other agent that I'm friends with, had the connections that would be needed to get that author a larger, better deal. And so, you know, I was like, look, you can tell, you know, I'm going to tell her that I'm going to offer to rep you, but you know, there's always that window where they tell other agents that have their work anyway. And sometimes that just kind of gives a little more credence too. So if I really want to work with them, I'll tell them like, look, this is what you're getting if you work with me, but you know, this agent also probably can get you what you need faster. And it's not to downplay my talents or my abilities or my confidence in myself, but it's just, you can kind of see when you're working with authors, you know, how demanding are they going to be? Who are they really involved in, and who's their connections? Like who is around them in their circle? So I don't know if that came out exactly like what I meant it to come out with, but yes. Even if something's great, if I know another agent is repping in that area and that they have the connections already, I'm definitely like, hey, check this out.
Yep. And I mean, you know, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I wanted to ask a question on behalf of our guest, Alexandria, who asks, do you have any advice for getting started as a literary agent?
There's a lot of internships. I know our agency has randomly offered them. I think that's a great way. If you are agented, you can start talking to your agent about if they have it. But yeah, I mean, I would just say like looking up the internships, and there's a lot of great resources online. I know Twitter can either be like super awesome or super terrible, but there's a lot of great ways to connect with other agents on there. And like our interns, when we've had them, I think we had We did a year, and then I think we take a year off, and I'm not sure when we're bringing up the next one or if it's going to be a mentorship, but those always go out on Twitter. There's a ton of agencies. Like if you have a dream agency, if you just go to their website, you can look and see. But I think internships are probably the best way.
What do you think? Let me go back to the question that we kind of mentioned at the outset of this event, which is, do you think that agenting is a viable, I don't know, career path or a supplementary career for an active writer?
It depends. So yeah, that's definitely, it depends. Some of my favorite authors are also agents. So I would say yes, but there is that balance. I watched a lot of authors leave writing so that they could agent more. But I've also seen a lot of agents who started to agent and then they had to go take like an editorial job or focus more on their books, because you don't really make money as an agent until you start selling your clients. So if your clients aren't making money, you're not making, and even then you're not making a lot of money. Like I knew going into it as an agent that I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it ideologically to find books that I wanted to represent. So
do you feel that most agents are like that?
I think a lot of agents so I have a lot of people that reach out to me on Twitter and they ask me what it's like to be an agent and how they can get started and everything like that. And then I watch them become agents. And I think a lot of them, when they circle back, are like, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be. Because there's so much more than just reading queries and signing people. It's everything on the back end that takes up a lot of time that they may or may not have considered before starting. But I mean, I think if you love to read more than you love to write, and you're organized, then agenting is definitely, I have the best job in the world. I love it. I can do it from anywhere. Every time I'm feeling, like, oh, what's going on? I just pop open and I'm like, oh, who sent me a manuscript I can read? And, it's the greatest feeling in the world. But I do think that there's a financial aspect to it that a lot of people need to understand before they jump into it. Whereas like as a writer, like we sold a book on proposal and we got the half of the advance and then we get the other half of the advance. So, that's the largest chunk of money as the writer right there. Versus the agent who only gets like, percentage of it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like some of what that back end stuff that you just mentioned. What is that?
So like you read, you do queries, you're doing outreach to editors. There's a lot of Zoom meetings and then just face-to-face meetings and then conferences. You take pitches, kind of matchmaking. So I actually just tweeted this earlier today because I was putting together a list for a new client of mine, where you read through like all your notes you have for the editors that you've met with and they've told you what they're looking for. You look through Publishers Marketplace and you see like what deals they've already done. So you're not trying to send them something that they already have, but something that's similar, that's voicey like what they like. So it's like matchmaking. So that takes some time. Then there's like, I'm kind of editorial on some pieces, so that takes time because when you're editorial for your clients, you're giving them back developmental edits and then you're polishing it. Like you're basically doing all the edits, like line copy, everything, to make sure that it's like as clean as possible. So there's that part. Then there's the contract side, like when you get an offer. So an offer comes in and then you have to let the other editors who know the project, so you submit to editors and then you get an offer and then you have to let all the other editors know and then they have to get back to you. So there's like the back end there. There's reading through the offer, which is the deal memo. And then you have to decide to that editor, can you give us this instead? And then they come back and say yes or no. And then you give it back and then they come back. And then finally you say, okay. And then it sends to the contracts department. Then the contracts department sends you the full contract. And then you have to read through everything, put in your agency clause. That's the back end. And in between that, you have all your clients and you have all the other queries and you have all the other editors coming in and you have all the other offers that you're trying to field. And
I always felt that, I was always kind of attracted to the idea of becoming an agent. And in fact, I even had this long running gag with my agent where I was going to become an agent under a pseudonym. I was just going to be called Agent X and everybody would wonder, who's Agent X? How did he get this deal? Obviously that never happened. But one of the reasons it never happened is because I'm so terrible at math. And I just thought keeping track of all the money and like, you know, the percentages and just the accounting part of it just filled me with dread. I mean, how do you deal with that?
I have spreadsheets right now, but also within our agency, we have people who handle like all of that part of it. I don't need to worry about it.
Oh, here's a great question from Jace. It says, Query Tracker says that you are currently closed to queries. What makes agents close and what makes them open back up again?
I think a lot of times agents will close when they get overwhelmed, when they have too many queries sitting there. I close in the summer. I closed last summer. I closed this summer out of respect for everyone's time, because I requested a bunch of fulls. I know how long it's going to take me to get back to them. I don't want a backlog of queries sitting in my query manager. I'd like to get through them all. And like publishing kind of goes into like summer Fridays. So like half day Fridays or full day Fridays. Some of the people in the publishing houses kind of take off, like they don't have to go to work. And so yeah. It's just a really good time for us to catch up on like our readings. So in the spring, I had requested like a bunch of fulls that I want to get through, and it takes time to get through them. And then it takes time to decide if you're going to offer, to write back and forth, to answer any questions, to call a Zoom. So it's not like I can just read something, offer on it, they're a new client, and then we're on submission right away. So summer's the time when I catch up on all that. And so once I get to like, you know, just a few fulls where I feel like I'm back on schedule, then I will open back up again. But also a lot of offers came in all at once. And then we also had this like a couple of little fires we had to put out with this other thing. And then we were chasing money from another house. So like when all of that piles up, we don't get to queries at all. And so there was like a good 6 weeks where I didn't even have time to look at queries. And so that kind of like preempted the, I'm going to have to close again because all this other in-house stuff with our clients is happening. So I can't make time, and it's just out of respect for the time of the queriers too.
I have a question, if it's okay. My thesis 3 students are in the middle of polishing up the final drafts of their query letters to agents. What advice do you have for query letters? What do you love to see in a great query letter?
Oh, so this is going to have to be an answer I've heard from other people, not necessarily a personal one, because the way that I look at, and I keep saying I'm going to change it, but I can't. I pull up pages first. I don't ever look at the query letter first, which is, again, the thing is, do as I say, don't do as I do. Because if the first page doesn't catch my attention for the voice, the query letter could be perfect, and it's not. I mean, query letters, we all know it's such a different skill set to write a query letter than it is to write actual fiction. Like active voice, catch me right away. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? So I always read the pages, and if I get through my first 5 pages, because that's what I request in Query Manager, I'm like, oh, I need to know more. Then I go back and I look at the actual query letter, and the only things I'm really looking for is like genre and word count, because I need to make sure that they're not giving me like a 120,000 word middle grade, lower middle grade. I need to make sure that, you know, the upmarket fiction piece isn't, you know, 40,000 words, or that their sci-fi isn't, you know, 500,000 words. I just had like a 220,000 word sci-fi that I was like, I loved the voice, and I'm like, would you make this 2 books? Like, why does it have to be 1 book right now? And you know, so, but I mean, yeah, genre, title, word count are the main things. When I go to other workshops or I'm on panels, I always hear how agents like a little personal thing, like, why me? And I tend to like, because I was in the query trenches, I know, like, why you? It's because they're looking through and they're finding, like, do you represent their genre? Maybe do you even have sales? Are you an author? You know, do you have one of their authors that they're in their critique partner, or you're a friend of, or something like this? Like, that's why you, like, there's going to be a reason. I mean, unless they've blind copied 80 agents into that email that we all get, and we're like, oh, did you all see this? Like, anybody, and he just, you know, blind copied or copied 80 other agents. Then we know, like, I mean, that's why Query Manager is such a great place, is because it allows authors to search based on the genre, and then they can look you up after and see, like, if you're going to be a good match. So,
thank you.
Did that answer it? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask, Melissa, how did you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but how did you find your agent?
I found one agent at the San Francisco Writers Conference maybe 15 years ago through a pretty atrocious practice called speed dating for agents, in which we all lined up behind agents and we had, whoa, maybe 2 minutes to pitch them. And then Michael Larson would ring a little bell and we'd have to move on. And I found my first agent that way with a children's picture book, which she couldn't sell. And in retrospect, it's because it was a total disaster and it rhymed poorly. So I found the agent that I have now, Jennifer Unter, through agentquery.com by being very specific with that search engine and looking for memoir and environmentalism. And I was fortunate that Jennifer represents both memoir and young adult and middle grade. So she represents all my work right now.
She checks all your boxes.
She
That's
checks
great.
all my boxes and we're friends and she's hilarious and it's just such a good match. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that is great. I remember those agents. I mean, I think they still do that sort of thing, don't they, at conventions?
They do. I think they're getting away from speed dating, but they're still putting a bunch of writers at a table with an agent. And the poor agent has like 2 minutes to listen to each pitch. It can be exhausting. What does that look like on your end, Marissa, when you go to conferences and take live pitches?
So I didn't start signing clients until June of 2020, and I have not been to a live one. I've done Zoom ones where there have been
that's different.
like 5 minutes in the room, and then like the moderator kicks them out. So like sometimes they'll be kicked out like mid-sentence, and I always feel so bad. So I was like, oh, like I'm listening.
Well, you were just on the receiving end at the pitch session that we had, I guess a month ago or so, and obviously super appreciative of your being there and everything else that you did to help make that happen. Is that kind of online pitching? Is that solely a result of COVID, or is that something that you think is going to persist beyond, assuming the pandemic is ever over? Is that something that will persist beyond and be like a regular part of the agent writer pipeline?
I actually think it will be. A lot of the conferences that we're being invited to are offering that option. And I feel like they'll probably still offer it moving forward too, especially because we're in such like a global landscape right now. So
yeah.
Marissa, so I have facilitated a couple of times at the Willamette Writers Conference in Portland, Pitch for the Prize, and this was pre-pandemic, where writers would come and they would stand up in front of a ballroom full of people and they would deliver their pitch to a panel of agents. The way that you might do if you're at a conference and sitting one-on-one across the table from an agent. What advice do you have for writers in that live pitch session? Because they tend to get a little anxious.
I know. I remember live pitching when I had my book. I think the best advice is just to breathe. Like, again, I was like that. When I was that author, I was the one where the editor was like, so what's your book about? And I was like, I don't know. And, my agent was just like, okay, just stop. Like, so I think it's just, breathe and just remember going in that, like, if you're at that point where you actually have a completed book to pitch, like, that's way more than half of the people or a third or 90% of the people you're ever going to meet. So many people are like, I've always wanted to write a book. And I'm like, oh, awesome. Like, how can I help? And they're just like, oh, I don't have time, or I don't have whatever, or there's always a reason. So, if authors are at the point where they're live pitching, they should just congratulate themselves like 1,000 times over, because it's like, hey, I actually finished a book. I have something to pitch. And if you remind yourself of that, and like by that point, you've probably read your book like 5,000 times, then just know it. Like, I would say, try not to like memorize anything, because whenever I tried to memorize stuff, it was awful. And whenever I just was trying to remember. It may not have been that perfect elevator pitch, but I got the main points across. Like I remembered my conflict, I remembered why my character was doing it, and that's really all that matters at that point. I think personally.
I know. I tell people it's just a conversation between you and another person. And I see these writers getting so rigid and mumbling their pitches to themselves before they go in the ballroom. And I just want to tell them to relax. Y'all are just people.
Especially because writers, like, I mean, I think part of the draw being a writer is being able to be behind your monitor and like you're much better typing out your words than, speaking them.
Yes, absolutely. Although I kind of feel like our current publishing environment or literary environment is kind of self-selecting those writers who are perhaps more comfortable with expressing themselves like in front of a camera or to a large groups of people than was the case in the past. Like a different kind of writer is emerging now, less introverted maybe, or maybe more able to do what's required in today's kind of more fast moving media landscape. They know how to play that game better, it seems like, certainly than I ever did when I was just coming up as a writer.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Although I will say for anyone listening that I have signed clients who did not have any social media presence, and we've sold to one of the main houses. So that's not to say that their marketing team is not like, hey, we want you to do this, this, and this now. But I mean, it is, especially with all this stuff about like book talk and everything. It's definitely something to consider. And a lot of agents that I know, before they're gonna sign somebody, they will go online and they'll see like what's their presence, what are they, posting about, are they,
Yeah, I mean, if you see that a potential client has a ton of followers, you're going to be more interested in perhaps in that client, but I don't think you're going to base your decision solely on that, are you?
No. Again, I start with the pages first. So if those first 5 pages, capture me, I think like if I go, like I do think in my query manager, I ask for like a website or Twitter or Instagram or some social media, just to see, because I mean, it is nice to know that they know how, or that they're savvy, like they know how to post, or that they know like what's appropriate to put out to stay like on brand. But again, like it's really hard because a lot of authors I work with, they're like, oh, I've written like 4 or 5 different books in different genres, and they don't have their brand yet. So they're just posting stuff that they like. And, in that case, it's like, oh my gosh, she posted about dance and I love dance, like, oh, we're going to get along great. So again, it's like, you may go on and just look at what their interests are.
How important is branding for a writer? I mean, does a writer who's thinking, who has their first novel ready to submit, but is also thinking beyond that, do they need to be thinking like, well, I need to stick in this genre now forever. I need to establish my brand, and I can't deviate from that until such time as I've become successful enough that I can either put something out in a different genre under my own name or start publishing under a pseudonym.
So like Marisa, the instructor, would say it's very important. But Marisa, the agent, I just went through this with one of our clients, huge 3-book deal, decided that this author decided that they wanted to write in a different genre completely without even finishing, like having book 2 come out. And we were just like, okay, wow. Look, we had a talk with the publisher and we had to look at like where else it could go because of like, the whole way the contract is set up and everything. And I mean, it worked out. So I'm a person that has watched everything, and my big phrase now is, why not? Like, if you can dream it, then why not? Like, why not you? Like, why not me? Like, whoever thought I would be, helping the authors I'm helping land book deals, and whoever thought like my books would be out there, and I mean, yeah. Most of the instructor is like, yes, it's very good to be on brand so an agent can see exactly where your career is going to go and who you are. But I have witnessed 1,000 times it be different. Okay, so like maybe 8. I've witnessed probably like total 8 personally, but I'm sure there's more out there.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, it reassures me at this stage of my career. So I want to just remind everyone that you know, our chat is open. If you have any questions for Marisa or Melissa or me, please don't be shy.
Paul, we didn't hear your agent story.
I know.
Well, okay. My first agent I got because I had sold a couple of short stories to a genre magazine called called Twilight Zone, and then its kind of sister magazine called Night Cry, and the same editor bought it for me, bought from me for both of those magazines, and he put me in touch with his agent, who was an agent named Ralph Ficananza, who became a very high level, high power agent in the sci-fi world. And you know, it was a traditional, like back in those days, it was like in the early 80s. He took me out for lunch and he said, you know, I can't publish, I don't think I can publish this book, the book that I had submitted to him. But he said, I really like your work and I know we can work together. And he stuck out his hand and I shook it, and that was it. And that was our deal. And then after a certain point, when he became extremely successful, he had an agent, a new agent that joined his firm, who happened to be the editor that bought my first novel. And he had, he's my current agent now, Chris Schelling, and he had decided that he was going to move from editing into agenting. And so Ralph said, well, would you mind if I gave you, you know, over to Chris and let him be your agent? I was like, no way. I mean, he bought my book. He really gets me. We've been, you know, really good friends ever since, and I could not be happier. So I kind of remained. I've had 2 agents, but really only one in a certain way. Yeah, nothing really too crazy to report there. So Liliana asks, what would make you not read a query letter? Like what turns you off? Where do you get to a certain point and you're like, nope?
Oh, well, I do read every query letter. I think what would make me not read it with as much attention would be if the first pages didn't capture my attention. Like if the writing was just not something that I connected with at all, or didn't fall in love with enough to move forward.
It seems like voice is something that's extremely important to you, both in the manuscript and in the query letter.
Yes, voice is everything to me, because as an agent, if I'm going to read that like manuscript 3, 4, maybe 5 times, sometimes, you know, and then it's going to go out to the editor and everything, I need to make sure that I love it, because, and this is kind of heartbreaking as an agent, but when I send something out to an editor, I'm basically sending like a piece of like, this is so great, I think you're going to offer on it right away. So, I mean, that's like my name behind it. And then I don't want them to turn around and be like, why did you think I was going to like this? This writing is awful. So, I mean, I think, and there was something that was just out. We have something in our agency that we say, but I mean, I don't know that we like share it, but I just saw something where somebody tweeted and it was awesome. It was kind of encapsulating that whole message. It's like, if you make me laugh or you make me cry, I'll sign you. If you do both, I'll sell you at auction. And that was like the perfect tweet. Like it just came out like the other day or something. I can't remember who tweeted it, but it was like one of these awesome agents from this agency. And it was like, that's exactly it. So it's voice. Yeah. Like,
but Marisa, I'm curious. So what if the voice is great, but the first pages are full of punctuation errors, spelling errors, and passive instead of active voice?
Well, sometimes passive voice, and this again is not Marisa teacher. Sometimes passive voice is part of the voice. It's that character. It depends on the genre. Punctuation and everything you can always take care of. I mean, like I've watched my manuscript go through like 3 different back-end editors, copy, line, proof, and I still find errors in it. So it's like I can read any published novel and still probably find something that doesn't go with that house's style guide. And a lot of houses use like a mix of like their personal style guide plus, you know, Chicago or MLA or something. So, I mean, I think the punctuation and stuff, it's very important. It does take a reader out of the moment. But I mean, I think for an agent looking for that great story, it's not a detractor. Unless you're in 702 or you're my 701 student right now and you're
right.
You know, trying
or anybody in my 505 class.
Thank you. So Jace asks, when an agent decides they like my writing, what happens next?
Well, for me, I send an email and I'm like, hey, your pages. Oh, I wish I should have pulled it up. I'm like, hey, your pages have really caught my attention. I'd love to further the conversation. If the full is still available and you're still interested in working with me, please send me the full. And then after that, it gets scheduled and they get an email back either from one of my assistants or myself that says, thanks so much for the full. I'm so, you know, I'm trying to get it done within 2 months. You've been scheduled to be read on this date, like July 26th or something. And it gets into my calendar on that date. And assuming nothing stops me from staying on schedule, on that date, I pull up that manuscript and I start reading it. And then whenever I finish, whenever it gets like either like or I finish it, that's when the decision gets made. Like if I got up and walked away and had to think about it a little bit and I'm like, oh, you know, maybe okay, I'll give it another shot, I'll keep reading it. Or if I just read it straight through to the end. But if somewhere after those 5 pages, it loses it, which often happens after like chapter 3, more often than like I would have believed when I first started out. But I think it's because we spend so much time polishing the beginning. The fun and games section, the middle, everything that's supposed to like lead up to you rooting for them can sometimes fall flat. And then it's like, oh yeah, I just didn't fall in love with it as much as I would need to move forward.
What about those manuscripts where you read it and you think, I can fix this? You know, this manuscript says so much promise, but it also has problems, but I know how to fix those problems. When do you make the judgment that it's worth it to take on the manuscript that requires that kind of fixing?
So for me, it depends on what else is going on with my current clients, because I am very client focused. So like I try to get back to them within like 1 to 3 days. I'm very communicative. I like having them all around me. So when I get to that point where I love a work, but I don't have time for it, then I pass out of respect for their time. I don't want them waiting like half a year for me to get to it. But if for some reason everything's going smoothly, the whole world is in alignment and I happen to have time, then I'll be like, oh, I have time to do this. So I guess it really just depends on how much time I think it will take to fix it.
Do you find along those lines that editors are less able, and I don't mean like, you know, able in terms of ability, but in terms of time to do that kind of editing work that is now kind of fallen more on agents to do, or maybe freelance editors that a writer will consult even before submitting to an agent?
Oh, that may depend on the genre and the length of the book. I've seen instances where editors take on something that's a mess, and I've seen instances when they're like, hey, if you clean this up, I would love to revisit it. I do know that a lot of editors I've reached out to in the past 2 years, they still give R&Rs. So, I mean, if they see a great idea that they want on their list, they will say like, look, this is what I need. Talk to your author. If they're interested, you know, come back to me.
Right.
Marisa, what do you do when an author comes to you devastated about a bad review once a book is published?
Oh, so I don't have any. My first book that I've sold is coming out in November for my client.
Oh, okay.
But current clients, we just typically tell them like, look, typically, it's not typical, but we tell them like, you know, when at the onset that you're putting your words out there for strangers to read and judge you, it's no longer going to be a supportive, safe space. Like, you don't know where your readers are coming from, and everyone's going to read your work differently from, you know, the reader doesn't read it as you wrote it, they read it as they read it. And so you just kind of be like, oh, just ignore it as best you can. And, you know, that's why hopefully you have a good critique group that can support you. I've been on the phone with authors who were just devastated and never wanted to write another word again because of the 1 star. And I was like, you know what, sleep on it, and your next idea is going to come and you're going to forget all about it. And, you know, you're going to get, hopefully you're going to get more 5 stars than 1 stars. But if somebody does give you a 1 star, that means that they actually took the time to form an opinion and write something. Whereas if they just were like, meh, like I've heard books where I'm like, meh, and I don't do anything with them. I don't talk about them one way or the other. So, I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but it happens. And most of the time, time does heal most everything.
Somebody had a question, but I can't see it now. Can you see it, Paul?
Yeah, we asked a question about how important is it for the writer to have a presence on social media?
Oh, right.
That depends on the genre. I know like there are certain genres that it is important because, like, well, this happened. A manuscript went, the editor was like, I love it, I'm taking it to acquisitions. It goes to acquisitions. The marketing team looks and says, nope.
Yeah.
Or
yep.
I've had editors come back, love it, would love to take it on, not a big enough platform. So that does happen, mostly like definitely in nonfiction. And I've seen it a little bit in YA, but not. So I've seen it happen in YA, but I've also seen it not happen in YA.
I think at some point we'll have to do a Wireside from the editorial perspective, you know, because I know when I became an editor at Time Warner, it was a mind-blowing experience because I thought that I would have so much more power when it came to deciding what got published. But in fact, I had very, very little power. And that was one of the things that was discouraging about it. I was I was kind of a junior editor. I was running my own line, but it was just I still had to go through marketing. You know, I had to have my my profit and loss statements had to work out. And somebody else who may not have understood the genre as well as I did was making decisions based on things that I didn't feel were relevant to the potential market for, particular books. And I would have to come back to an author and say I couldn't do it. I couldn't sell it. So the editor also has to be a bit of an agent, don't they? Within the publishing firm, they have to sell the book that they want to acquire to marketing people in many cases.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I've had conversations with editors where they're like, look, I'm going to take this to market. Can you give me a little more information? To their marketing team. And so I'm like, okay, well, how can we clean this up? How can we polish up, we start by shortening the synopsis because marketing wants to see like the main points. So it's not exactly the query, but it's not exactly the synopsis. And then, we're trying to give like pitch points, selling points, relevancy of it, where it's going to sit in the shelving space, longevity, like why it's going to like be lasting, and so.
And comp titles are super important at that point. Melissa, you've begun some book talking, haven't you?
Yeah, I kind of gave it up.
Oh, you did? Why?
Time constraints over the summer. Yeah, I might pick it up again. I can't do it all. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. I can't do it all.
Yeah. It seemed like it was fun though for a while. It seemed like you were enjoying yourself.
Oh, well, and it led to an appearance on CNN. So, I mean, it was great. I'm just too tired to do TikTok right now. But yeah, if it works for people here, you should most definitely try it.
Melissa, do you have an assistant, like an author's assistant, to help you?
No, I've thought about hiring a virtual assistant, and I probably will. but I'm kind of a control freak about my own career. And I'm just interested in learning how to do all the different marketing aspects as well as the writing aspects. But I think it's probably too much.
That's the biggest thing is like writing. Like I write Sunday evenings, so I know every week like I'm gonna write Sunday evenings. And like when we did this book, we knew we had 5,000 words every Sunday to get it done within a certain time frame. And so, you know, that was fine. But when you throw social media into the mix, it's like that takes away all my creativity right there. So I have to have somebody design all my posts and do my captions and everything for me.
Oh, you do
And
that? Wow.
are my two best friends.
Huh.
But yeah, I can't. That's one thing is I tell all my authors, I'm like, only go to where you know that you're going to be able to be consistent.
Yep.
So
Yeah, good point. So what counts as consistency to you?
where you can just keep, you know, posting the things that you know that you like to post.
But for like how many times a week or a day?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a.
Oh, good.
I don't have like a formula for that.
That's refreshing.
Some people do.
You're going to show up, and then I tell them to save their names on other platforms, you know, if they want to, so that other people can't get their name. They don't have to post there.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, so I grabbed melissahart.com 20 years ago, and then 2 years later, the Republican Congresswoman Melissa Hart asked if she could buy it, and I told her yes for $500,000, and she declined.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Now people get us mixed up, though, so that's a problem.
So, Marisa, before we go, we're coming down to the end of our chat. What's next for you? I mean, do you see yourself continuing as an agent? Do you think like you'll return to writing and publishing fiction? What's next, especially after your next nonfiction book comes out? What comes next?
I think, well, the nonfiction was kind of because of my husband. It's in his field, and we kind of, you know, had been conceptualizing this together. I think I will always be writing something. Mostly, I am loving agenting because I can put a call out. I have like a little Facebook group where I have like, I don't post on Facebook at all except for my little Facebook group, Marissa's Megastars. And I'm like, I really just wish I could find a book about blah, blah, blah. And then they'll write it for me. And it's like, or they'll give me proposals. And I'm like, this is like my own personal like wish list right here with these clients. So, or like I said the other day on Twitter, I was like, I just really want to get like this a YA contemporary. Like the Sarah Dessen Netflix thing came out, and I just was really looking, and then like, bam, a bunch of them showed up in my query manager. And then, you know, I wanted to do this like other one, and I am definitely a bigger reader than writer. I will always go and buy books that I love and read them. But, you know, the fact that I can cherry pick actual authors, and a lot of them are debut, although I do have some that come to me that already are published or from other agents because their agent didn't work out or left or whatever. So, I mean, definitely writing, because I always love to just have something. But yeah, I mean, like, it's the why not? Like, where do I go from here? Wherever. Like, and, you know, why not try this or that? But definitely agenting. I've been with the agency since 2009, so I will never leave that. I love it.
Marisa, are you saying it's okay if an author has never published before? You're actually open to representing those authors?
Oh, yes.
So
when I'm open to queries.
Well, sure. I get so many authors at SNHU worried that an agent won't even look at their pages because they've never had anything published.
Actually, I prefer debut, and one of the things, and Paul probably knows this from editing, but those P&L statements he mentioned, like, we look at sales. So, and this is agent Marisa, this is not why not Marisa, or, you know, instructor Marisa. This is from an agency side. If you've self-published a book and you go on BookScan and you look at those numbers, and those numbers are not huge, you will have a very hard time getting into, because again, the acquisitions process at the main houses, they go through finance, they go through other, you know, marketing, they go through, I mean, like one acquisitions go all the way up to like your VP and your president of, and your publisher of that line. So if you don't have strong sales and you do have a book out, then that's not a good indicator for that publisher. So in that case, like a lot of the big deals that you see from newer agents, because I'm newer, so I'm still building my connections. So some of the good deals that you'll see there listed are for debut authors because they don't have a track record.
Yeah, all they can base it on at that point are comp titles, really. And that's to the benefit of the debut author. All right, people, we are at our 9 o'clock time, so means another chat has come to an end, and I want to thank everyone so much. Marisa, it's just wonderful to speak with you. You've been laying some serious wisdom down on us, and I really appreciate it. I know our students do too.
Thanks for having me. And
oh, for sure. And Melissa, a pleasure as always.
Thank you, Paul. Marisa, that was great.
We'll see you next month, and to everyone else, make sure to do your homework, and we will see you next time as well, I hope.
All right. Bye, everybody.